All right. We are live. Welcome to the You Heard Me podcast, episode
11?
11. Episode 11. Last week was the big number 10. Tonight is 11. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, those of you that are joining. We are coming to you live on YouTube, one of our favorite channels. I have my vitamin water. How are you doing? This is my beautiful wife, Alyssa, for those of you that don't know. And we are going to answer all of your questions as usual. We're also going to start with a topic, and I'm going to pull up our Instagram and see where the voting...
Oh, I hope it's the one I voted for.
Oh, let's hope. Let's hope. Let's see. All right, what to do when two dogs don't get along. So
No,
that's
it's not
that's
the one.
not the one. All right, well, that's all right. That's the one we're going to be discussing. I'm going to make sure that I'm going to log into our let's see, make sure that everything is going well and we're doing good. I'll log into our YouTube. Yep.
Testing,
all right.
testing, 2,
testing,
3, 4.
testing. Everything's great. Okay, good. All right, so that's the topic we're going to be discussing, what to do when two dogs don't get along, or 3 or 4 or more. That should be a book. What are your thoughts?
A children's book.
Children's book by Hope Gables Canine. Coming soon.
Oh, that actually wouldn't be a bad idea.
No, would not. So many ideas, so little time.
Kim can help us with that.
I need another thing on my plate.
Oh,
But maybe we'll see. Anyway, okay. Well, as people are joining, that's why we do the lead-in topic so that we can give people time to join and we
Oh,
can
and-
answer all your lovely topics.
I'm
What
wearing
is this?
our Ash and Layla shirt.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. All right. So, well, Alyssa, as she shows off her fashion, I'm going to get into our lead-in topic. All right. So I see people are starting to join, which is great. All right. So lead-in topic. How do I get the chat again? I feel like I do this every
time now.
every time. I got to be better about this. It's up here, I believe. View. Where are we? Why can't I find our chat box? Is it studio mode? I'll find it. I always find it. It's one of these things that oh, here we go. Open Studio. Duh. It's one of those things that sort of eludes. Is that the right word? That eludes me. Eludes?
I don't think that's the right adjective.
No, that's probably not the right adjective. I got to work on that too. All right. Anyway, all right. So we got the chat box up, and let's get into it. So basically, what to do when two dogs don't get along. So, okay. So first, before even getting into any techniques, any training, anything like that, just as a reminder, and I bring this up a lot on our podcast, but as a reminder, society says that all of our dogs should get along with everything, everyone, every dog, and it's just not realistic. It doesn't mean your dog is a bad dog. It doesn't mean you should get rid of your dog. It doesn't mean any of those things. It just means that your dog is a normal dog. I don't love everybody and everything. Alyssa doesn't love everybody and everything, and neither do you at home. And so why are we putting the same expectations, or rather, why are we putting different expectations on our dogs that we don't even hold for ourselves? But Nick, they're dogs. Yeah, okay. And dogs also have emotions and feelings and need respect and trust and boundaries like any human. Okay. So let's get past that point and let's talk about the nitty gritty of what to do when two dogs don't get along. So the first one is very easy. If you don't have to live with that dog, guess what? Then you don't have to bring your dog near that dog again. Because if you don't have to live with them, then that solves your problem. I'm not saying that over time you can't build a relationship, but if your dog gets along with some dogs and not others, why wouldn't you just have them play with the dogs they do get along? Because dogs also don't need 100 friends. Dogs need a handful of friends that are a good influence on them, and that's about it, right? And another big, I think, notion or expectation that we put on our dogs is that they need these like 1,000 friends, right?
Mhm.
As we get older as humans, our friend list also starts dwindling. All right. We, for a myriad of reasons. And your dog doesn't need 1,000 friends, just like you don't need 1,000 friends. So we have to get better about not putting expectations on our dogs that we don't hold for ourselves. All right. And they are unrealistic expectations. Okay. So if you bring your dog to a friend's house and they don't get along, let that be that. Okay. I have fur in my mouth. This is what happens. I'm covered in fur and slobber, and that's just my daily thing. Anyway, so it's like still there. Anyway, I'm a mess.
That happened to me one time. It's the shed.
Yeah, no, not the microphone, because then you start making sounds in the microphone, and I can't edit those out. Oh, jeez. See what I have to deal with?
This is live, though.
Yes, it is live, but regardless.
Okay.
Okay, so now, if you... She's sticking her tongue at me. This is also a couples podcast, a couples therapy podcast, and that's also coming to you on Thursdays at 8 p.m. EST. So yes, if you can avoid it, then don't force it, because if you force it, you're only going to make it worse, and you're violating the trust that you have with your dog. Don't force it. Now, if you have to live with that dog that your other dog doesn't get along with, you're not going to be able to force it either. However, you're more likely to build a relationship over time, a healthy one, because they're going to be around each other more. So dogs that are around each other more can learn to live with each other in a very healthy manner. Doesn't mean that they're going to love each other. It just means that they understand that this is an individual that I have to live with, just like if you're living with a roommate. And you may not be particularly fond of your roommate, but certainly, hopefully, you're not walking into your, apartment or home and, at the sight of them, you're like darting at them from across the room. If you are, there are a lot of therapists and therapy out there that can help you through some of those issues. And that's not something we're going to be doing on this podcast. We're going to keep it to the dogs. But generally, yes, my dry humor, by the way, I understand not a lot of people, maybe not a lot of people know that I'm joking, but if you know me, you know that I have dry humor, and I also like dad jokes as well, and I say a lot of those too. So part of this podcast is getting to know me and Alyssa as well. Anyway, so yes, teach them how to coexist. Don't force them in the same small corner of the room and expect them to duke it out and they're just going to figure it out. Don't do that, please. Don't do that with any dog. Teach them that there are boundaries here. If the two dogs have to live with each other, they have each defined spaces in the home that are theirs, that they can decompress, that nobody's going to instigate them, that nobody's going to come over and steal their prized items. You have to be, I hate using this word, but you have to be the leader in your home. And I don't mean like leader as in you have to walk around shouting and being mean. I mean more of a leader as you have to be the one that sets what those boundaries are. That's just, you have to be that guidance. And I will say that a lack of guidance is what leads to a lot of these issues, not just this issue, but many issues. So you have to think about, how are you being clear? Think of the greatest leaders in the world. All right. They are clear, they're concise, they're fair. And I think, yes, there's a level of all of those elements that you should practice in your home. Fairness, what is the clarity? How am I making things clear on a daily basis? Am I helping my dog be calmer, or am I bringing a certain energy to the environment that's only exasperating the issues? And I think those are questions to be asking ourselves when we are presented with an issue like this.
Very good.
And I may think about getting into therapy at some point as well. For those of you that want to talk through other issues, relationship issues. I feel like dog training and relationships, human relationships, are very similar. What do you think? Yes, I think they're similar.
Yeah.
I've learned dogs will teach you more about yourself than anything else. And that's a big thing that I've learned becoming a dog trainer. What do you think?
Definitely.
There are many similarities. And I think that's why I do this podcast, is to draw those similarities, because I know a lot of owners look at dogs as being this sort of mystery. Oh, why do you do that? Why do you do that? And I understand that, because, unless you're educated, like what we're trying to do now, it makes sense to feel that way. But once you start learning, just like I did, and just like Alyssa and I did, you realize that there aren't as many there aren't as many differences as you think in terms of how to build a relationship with a dog, and also how dogs learn. people and dogs learn very similarly. And once you start wrapping your head around that, then communicating with a dog becomes a whole heck of a lot easier. And that's definitely something that we're trying to bring to light more, because the more that you understand that, the better trainer and owner you're going to be. So that's just my piece on that.
Aligned.
Aligned. One word, aligned. The Aligned podcast.
I say that a lot during my work day. Aligned.
I hate buzzwords. I hate corporate buzzwords. Looping back, loopy doopy, Fruit Loops.
I don't think I've ever said looping back.
Well, yeah, I don't like looping. Looping back, terrible one. Anybody that's
Circling back.
anybody that maybe it's circling. Anybody that's watching, do you have any buzzwords that you also hate to hear? Because looping back is mine. That's a big one. Thankfully, I don't have to sit in those meetings anymore because my passion is my work, and that's why I'm sitting here. So,
just because you work in corporate doesn't mean it's not a passion.
no, I'm not saying I'm not. I didn't say that. If you enjoy what you do, it doesn't matter where you work,
Right.
as long as you enjoy it. That's all that matters. I
Correct.
enjoy talking to dogs all day, and sometimes you would say that I feel loopy doopy because when sometimes you'll all be out in the yard just talking, and people, I'm sure my neighbors are like, he's talking again to the dogs, which I feel like they understand me. That's what matters.
They speak English?
Yes. All right. So we
Are
got
we getting
questions.
into questions?
We got questions.
Okay.
I'm gonna keep drinking my vitamin water.
You do that. You keep hydrated.
Mark my words, one day vitamin water will sponsor this podcast.
And what's your favorite kind?
The lemonade one. What do we got?
Question number 1. What can you do when you're not around and your dog is misbehaving? It's almost like she knows better. When I'm around, she's entirely fine, but otherwise, she's a menace.
Yeah. Okay. So this one, there's a saying, which is, well, two things. Crate your dog if you're not around, because then they can't get into anything. So that's well, I wouldn't say that's the easiest one, because then you have to teach your dog how to be in a crate, and that's a trainer's job to do and to help you through that. So yeah, crate training, it will keep your dog from misbehaving and getting in trouble. And that's really one of the biggest benefits of crate training. The corrections have to happen when you're not around. If you really want your dog to stop doing whatever they're doing, the correction has to happen when you're not there. If your dog is smart enough to know that the corrections only happen when you're around, then that's what's going to happen. Dogs are opportunistic. So if you leave something on the table, and they may know enough not to go near it when you're around, but when you're not around, what do you expect them to do? And that's really why I'm an advocate for crate training, because who's going to do all that work and set up cameras and correct their dog and pretend that like they're not in the room? And it's very nuanced and very time consuming and tedious, and just teach your dog how to go into a crate and lay down.
And settle.
And settle.
That's a word you use a lot with your training.
Yes.
Settle.
Yes, we teach a settle
That's
command.
a buzzword for your training.
Okay. Well, so we teach a settle command. A settle command is a double down, so head down. A lot of dogs won't settle even just in a singular down. I don't even know if that's a thing. It is a thing. Down is just down, and then there's settle, which is double down, which is your head down. And the way that I describe that is if you're sitting in bed versus laying in bed. So down technically is kind of like laying in bed, but not head on the pillow. And then settle is head on the pillow. That's how I think of that. And if your head is on the pillow, you're going to fall asleep much faster. And just like the settle command, your dog is going to settle much faster. How do you teach that? We're going to have videos on that, and we will link to those videos. For now, contact us. We'll walk you through it. Okay?
That's great.
What else we got?
Have a 2-year-old German Shepherd who barks at everything. Our neighbors are starting to get annoyed, and we're worried this is going to become a bigger issue. Any tips?
It's that German Shepherd bark. Did you
Maybe
know?
You should get new neighbors. Just kidding.
Well, technically, it's really not the neighbor's fault. But
I'm just kidding. Making
yes,
a
I know.
joke.
Yes, I know.
Ha-ha.
Haha. Good one. She's getting annoyed when they say that. I didn't fight her for. The thing is, I say jokes all the time, or I'll show you like a funny meme or reel.
That's because it's not funny.
It is funny. It is hilarious. But
I think you're funnier than the memes you send me.
oh, that's very nice. That's very nice. Back to the question. So, all right. So German Shepherd barking at everything. All right. So German Shepherds, number one, I don't know if anybody knows this, and I believe this is factual. I'm pretty sure I read this. Is that German Shepherds, the decibel level to which their bark is I think one of the highest, if I'm not mistaken.
Interesting fact of
well,
the day.
It's very guttural. It's very guttural,
Like
and it's very loud, and the decibel of it, I think because of the tonality of the bark, whatever brings high decibels. I believe that's I'll have to
Or
double
it's
check that
probably
statement.
like heard farther away or something.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but all right. So the tit for tat's gonna come to a stop for a moment. So she's shaking her head. What am I saying? German Shepherd barking. Okay, so it depends on where the barking's happening. If the barking's happening indoors, I always go back to this. What are the dog's boundaries? Too much freedom leads to a lot of things. And one of those things it leads to is barking at everything. If your dog is barking out the window, don't put newspapers on your window. Don't tape things. Don't tape plastic bags. It's all ridiculous. Stop it. Just stop the barking. It's enough. And you want to be proactive about where is your dog during the day. They should not be, and I'm just making assumptions. I'm not saying that this is necessarily what this owner has happening. I'm just saying in general, you want to be careful of your dog laying on the top of the couch or even having access to raised furniture, because raised furniture is usually be in front of a window. And what the dog does is the dog will run over to the raised furniture, jump on the raised furniture, bark out the window. You have to stop all that stuff. All right. So no raised surfaces. That's it. If your dog is using the raised surfaces to misbehave, that's it now. That's done. They don't get those anymore. And we have to be okay with taking things away that are not healthy. Well, but at 8 o'clock at night when I'm watching TV, okay, but at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, your dog is going nuts. And again, I'm not saying this is this owner's specific situation, but in general, this is what we see. When we walk into a home or I talk to an owner, a lot of these things are going on, and we have to evaluate what do we need to take away for the dog to be their best self. We have to move away from this notion of the dog just gets everything and then just can do the things anyway. So, dogs don't do well with shades of gray. So, okay, your dog's on the couch and then they're barking out the window. And then you have them on the couch an hour later. Well, all it takes is somebody to walk by again and for the behavior to happen again. You can't predict the entire world. And because you can't predict the entire world, the Amazon, the FedEx guy, blah, 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 whatever, you can't predict those things. And because you can't, you have to make your life easier and you have to set yourself up for success and also your dog up for success. We cannot and should stop leaving things to chance. When we leave things to chance, things happen. And that's how habits form. So we have to stop leaving things to chance. We have to stop saying, well, I don't know when the Amazon or the FedEx guy is coming. Nobody does. And so how are you going to set up your environment so that when those unpredictable moments happen, you're matching them with predictability on your side? Where are you during the day? Can I see you? Do you know what your boundaries are? Can you adhere to those boundaries when I need you to? Do you know how to stay for long durations of time? Do you understand that the barking is not okay? Do you understand that jumping up on the couch and barking out the window is not okay? Do you understand what is okay? Like, these are all questions that we should be asking when we have a dog that is misbehaving, and we should be filling in those gaps wherever those gaps are. And that, as my job, that's what I do, is when I walk into a home, I'm asking these questions and then we're filling the gaps. And the biggest one is again, going back to that clarity. What clarity is being offered and how can we match those unpredictable moments with predictable moments on our side? And that has to be proactively done. All right. So that's where you get into teaching a place command and a down command and a come command, and making sure that your dog has time to rest during the day. They're not just walking around like an Energizer bunny and pacing and whining and living in the yellow zone. All of these things. And so these issues, we typically focus on the issue, like the barking, or we'll focus on the reactivity, or we'll focus on the aggression, or we'll focus on the anxiety, or we'll focus on the resource guarding. But we don't focus on the dog's entire day and how all those things are related and have probably led to the behavior issue in the first place. And I think this is where we make, where a lot of owners kind of, I understand why, because the behavior is what is in front of you and it's the loudest part of your dog. But the quietest parts of the day are the ones that need to be equally evaluated. All right. So I'm going to say that again. The behavior issue you're experiencing is the loudest part of your dog, but the quiet moments of the day are the moments that should be evaluated because likely those moments are what led to that behavior issue.
Interesting.
I think that's the best way to put it. And I've been doing this for a very long time. And honestly, I think that's the simplest way that I've ever put that.
That's great.
Hopefully that helped.
Okay.
What else
What's
we got?
the deal with tone? Some trainers use it, others don't. Just curious. I don't know what that is.
So tone, well, it's because we don't use it, but tone is on e-collars. Basically, it makes a tone. Well, it doesn't say tone. It makes a noise. Yeah, it makes a noise. Yes. Yeah, it goes tone. Is there? No, stop that. Now, because I'm wearing my headphones and it's like glaring through my headphones.
Jeez.
Well, because it's not as loud for you when you do because you don't have the headphones on.
Yeah, because
Anyway, so but
you
well,
still haven't gotten me a pair.
I haven't figured out how to hook up two headphones. So,
Rude.
I also have to figure out a couple other things like how to stream multiple platforms, but that's a project for another day. So tone, are there any e-collars out there that go tone? No. So can you tell it's been a long week? So getting to that point, right? We don't use tone. Here's why. There's the command, okay, which we teach, come, down, place, etc. Then there's the correction word that precedes the correction. So adding tone is just another piece of sort of leeway that your dog is getting. So for us, we don't feel it's necessary. There are so many opportunities that we provide. And at the end of the day, when we say place, if we've seen a dog do place 1,000 times and we say place, and we've seen them do it successfully, adding in a tone is not going to be like this magic tool because the reason why the dog isn't doing it is because they're making an active decision to not do it. So then you get into corrections, right? So, this idea of providing these like, oh, well, don't you want to provide a warning? No, the warning is the command. They know the command. They know come, they know down, they know heel. We've seen them do it 1,000 times. We're going to give them the benefit of the doubt. That's what the command is for. Come down, sit, place. We're communicating. Mm-hmm. And so, no, we're not going to repeat the command. If they don't do it, and we've seen them do it over and over again, they're making an active decision to not do it. And so, no, tone to us, I mean, at least with how we train, is not necessary for that reason, because we're evaluating that by the time we do go to correct a dog, we've already done all the work. We've done weeks of training. We've seen the dog succeed so many times. And at that point, it's an accountability issue, not a learning issue. Now, I understand for like hunting dogs, if they're super far away and, maybe that, they can't potentially hear the owner or something like that. Maybe that would be an instance where, and I don't know enough about hunting training and things like that. And I'm willing to admit that, but I'm assuming tone comes more into handy there. Than it does otherwise because the dog could be further away. There could be, things in the environment blocking and whatever, loud sound, all that stuff, right? So God bless you. I'm assuming that the tone is more important for hunting dogs, but we've never found it useful in our training, and we're not the only ones. All the trainers that we converse with and follow and do similar training to us, they don't use tone either. So.
What's like an example of like how you would use it?
Well, what happens is the tone is the indicator before the stimulation. Okay. Yeah. So it's just the dog's hearing the sound and it's an opportunity to, whatever. Mostly for recall. When I've seen tone used, I've used it or I've seen it used for recall. And that's why I'm saying for hunting dogs, I think it's more prevalent than for like pet dog training. And so that's just on that piece on that. Yep.
Oh, same with vibrate. Is there a reason why some will resort to using vibrate versus the actual stimulation from the collar?
Yeah. See, vibrate's another one. you know, it's almost, this is my personal opinion and theory on this. Vibrate, tone, all these things, my opinion is because there are, and I'm not saying this is everybody, so I don't want people to misconstrue my words. Again, like I said, I'm sure that in hunting dog training, there's a whole technique and there's a whole theory, and I don't do hunting dogs, so I'm not going to speak to that, and I don't know that, so I'm willing to admit that. But I do think that there's equal amount of trainers out there that don't know how to effectively teach an e-collar, or they're afraid of what people might say during the process. And so I think a lot of times they bring up vibrate or they bring up tone because it sounds nicer to the owner. No, we're going to use vibrate instead, and we're going to use I feel like that's also happening a lot, and you need to be confident in what you're explaining to your client. We've never had a problem explaining why an e-collar is important. We've never had a problem explaining our methodology. If you're using words like vibrate and things like that because you're not sure of what you're doing, continue your education, become confident with your approach. We are, and we don't waver or stray away from that. And so, there, going back to the question of the vibrate, there is no real, I guess there are use cases for a vibrate, right? If you have a really small dog potentially, and maybe the stimulation's a little bit, but again, we've trained 5-pound dogs with stimulation. That's why the e-collar goes from level 1 to 100.
Right.
So, and 1, I can't even feel, no, I've never encountered anybody that can feel 1 on an e-collar. So this idea of like vibrate, it's just, I feel that trainers are using it because it sounds nicer, but it's not as effective. And here's why. The vibrate is 1 intensity on the e-collar. Okay. So yeah. So you're losing. So let's say you have a dog that's highly aroused and you're sitting there using vibrate. Well, guess what? You have 1 intensity of vibrate. You really think that's going to work in most situations? No. So
once
we don't
they're
use
outside and they see
exactly
something.
Right. So the vibrate, goodbye. Vibrate is not going to work in that situation. So we've had dogs come in our program that have been taught on vibrate, and the owner's like, my dog just doesn't listen. And I'm like, well, of course, because vibrate has 1 level. The stimulation has 100. All right. By 1 every time, mind you. So believe it or not, we've also encountered dogs that find the vibrate way more jarring than the stimulation of the e-collar. And a lot of people are like, really? And I'm like, yeah, well, let me put it on your arm and let me have you feel level 6 and then feel vibrate. And people are like, wow.
Yeah.
Owners
if your
are like,
dog
wow.
only needs like a 5th level on the e-collar, but the vibrate is like
way
15
higher
or something, then that doesn't make sense.
Right. So I don't do that vibrate stuff. And I'm not going to sit here and mince words with vibrate. I know there are trainers out there that are using vibrate because they don't know how to teach the stimulation of the collar properly, or they're just sort of not confident in their approach, and they're sort of walking through the door like, here's an e-collar, maybe let's try vibrate. Don't do that. Just teach the stimulation. That's why it's there. That's why the e-collar has it. And, you're off to the races. And again, if you're a trainer that's learning and you want to reach out, please do, because I will be more than glad to help you. I'm not saying this to knock, I want to help you learn, and I want to help educate.
Educating.
So just be careful of that, because if you're using certain things because you don't know how to use the other elements of it, then reach out to either me or another trainer. Nobody's going to shame you for that. I would much rather show you so that you can go on to help more people, other than you kind of just sitting in this perpetual cycle of like, well, maybe we'll try vibrate. And then when you encounter a dog where they're like, oh my God, that vibrate's insane, and then you don't have any options, I would much rather you feel confident. So please reach out to us, or there are many trainers that will help walk you through it. Again, I'm not saying there's no use cases for vibrate, but generally we've never used it. We've had hundreds of dogs through this program and never found value in it. So, that's that. So reach out if you need guidance, and I'm more than happy to help in that regard.
In the market for a puppy, not quite sure yet, but want to make sure we're not missing anything. Any insight you can provide would be helpful. Thanks.
Yeah. So, well, the biggest one is to make sure you're getting the breed for your lifestyle. That's the one that I hang my hat on. That's my answer anytime I get this question, is make sure you get the breed characteristics that align most with your lifestyle. If you're a very active person and you hike every weekend and you like to travel around and, camp and do a lot of all sorts of things, then sure, get a dog that can keep up with that. If you are a homebody and you like to lounge around on the weekends, which is not wrong, then get a breed that can do that. So make sure you're not choosing a breed based on looks. Make sure you're choosing a breed based on characteristics, because most people that get a dog that the breed characteristics don't match their lifestyle, that's where you start getting into trouble. And that's where training becomes more prevalent. Now, I will say this. If you have a breed with characteristics that doesn't match your lifestyle, all is not lost. It just means you're going to have to put more time and effort into training. And it means that you're going to have to potentially change your lifestyle a little bit. So that's just something to evaluate. And again, not saying that if you have a dog and you're like, oh man, what did I, you're okay. That's fine. Just know that you're going to have to make adjustments, and we all love our dogs. So we end up making those adjustments, and everything's hunky dory. Everything's fine. And there are people like us that help with that. And so don't get down on yourself if you've already made a decision. That's fine. And for this person that's asking, sit down, write write 5 things on a piece of paper that you do on the weekends or that you love to do, and match the breed energy with the energy of the 5 things that you wrote down on a piece of paper, and see if those things match up. Print out descriptions of the breed, really do your research. What do they need? How much activity? What are their tendencies? Go and talk to other people that have that breed. You can go on Facebook. There's Aussie groups and German Shepherd groups, and there's groups for almost every breed. There's forums. Talk to people that own these dogs, because they are the best people to help you determine if that dog will match your lifestyle. And then you can make an informed decision on, is this the right dog breed for me and where I'm at in my life right now, but also fast forward 15 years too. So don't just look at today, look at 15 years from now. And so obviously we can't predict the future, but again, you're doing the best you can to determine if this is the right breed for you. And you do not want to make knee-jerk decisions on that, because again, a mismatch of lifestyle to characteristics, again, just means that all that time that you could be spent doing something else, now you're working on training, and every dog can benefit from training, but some dogs are going to need more and some dogs are going to need less. And if you're a mismatch there, you might get yourself in a little bit of a tricky territory. So yeah.
Okay. Next question. Oh, more of a comment. Saw your last episode about the pet store prong collars. Took your feedback, threw ours out, and ordered a Herm Springer.
Great. Awesome. I'm glad I could help. You did the right thing. And a lot of people don't realize that until it's said. So you did the right thing. The pet store prong collars are notoriously bad, and I do not like them, and I cringe every time I see one. So thank you for doing that. You did right by your dog by making sure that you have the highest quality and the best manufactured prong collar. And again, I'm not making money on anything related to Herm Springer, but I would much rather see your dog benefit from using the proper tools than the ones that are just not going to be clear. And I'm all about clarity. So thank you for doing that. Your dog is going to thank you, because it's going to be clearer to them what you're trying to communicate. And that's really the goal of all this, is to make sure we're trying to make sure that we're clearly communicating in every facet of what we're doing, and not only training, but expectation setting with your dog's routine, and clarity amongst everything. Let's just put it that way. So the more clarity, the better. What else we got?
Last question.
Oh boy.
I heard that if you correct a dog looking at another dog, you're only going to create worse reactivity. Is that true?
What a question to be the last question. This may bring us to, we're at 35 minutes. This may bring us to the full hour. No, I'm not going to spend a half hour answering. I may. We'll see. I'm also wearing my pug shirt today.
That's cute.
Okay. So getting into this, first of all.
Oh boy.
First of all, my pug shirt. Okay. First of all, make sure there's no wrinkles.
He's all wrinkly already.
Yes, I know. First of all, no. I'm going to say that again. No. Okay. I'm going to speak so passionately on this one because we had a reactive dog struggle of our own. So here's how I'm going to put this. People are going to say to you not to correct your dog and they're going to fear you into thinking that the behavior is going to get worse. I'm pretty sure I've gone on this rant once or twice before on this podcast. If you correct your dog for staring, that is not casually looking. There's a big difference. Staring leads to reactivity. Casual looking does not. Now, let me take that a step further. If I'm driving and I'm on the road and I'm speeding and I get pulled over, was it the road that gave me the ticket or was it my behavior? Okay? So, you are correcting the behavior, the intention of what that staring at the dog is going to lead to, which you know what it's going to lead to because you've seen it over and over again, which is an explosion. If I'm speeding, why do people get pulled over for speeding?
Because it's against the law.
Well, just further than that. Why is it against the law?
Because you could cause an accident. You could hurt someone else.
Sure. Okay. And also, speeding is the intention. Sometimes, I'm sure we would agree on this, that speeding is even more important to stop because sometimes speeding leads to or is coming from, like, let's say, like, I'm trying to think of a good example. Well, you bring up a good one. What you said that people could get hurt, and I think that's a good one. I was trying to figure out where I was going with that one. Well, but just in general, speeding, yeah, you could hurt somebody, you can run a red light, you can T-bone somebody, you know, that's obviously why, you know, but also it catches people in the act too. That's what I was getting to. Speeding sometimes catches people in the act. You know, whatever, they, you know, robbed a bank or something. I'm just trying to think of a good example of like why
like
people,
you
kind of get what I'm saying.
Get away from
yeah, they're trying to get away from that. Whatever. Regardless, when your dog is staring, okay, think of that as like the intention of what's to come. All right, just like a car accident or, you know, something that could potentially result in somebody speeding, your dog staring is similar, right? And the staring is not looking. The staring is fixating, and the fixating could lead to your dog lunging, potentially getting into a dog fight. I've seen people just drop the leash and the dog just goes and attacks the other dog. Okay, it's very similar to speeding, all right? And the intention is there. So you're not, again, if I'm speeding and I get pulled over and I get a ticket, okay, it's not the road that gave me the ticket. I'm not going to be scared of the road. I'm not going to hate the road. I'm not going to get on the road the next day and start stomping on the asphalt. No, it was my behavior, because that behavior is dangerous, as Alyssa said. That behavior is not appropriate, okay? And that is what's getting corrected, as it should be. So correcting your dog for fixating, not looking, fixating on another dog is appropriate. And in fact, it should be more widely acceptable. And I understand that there's a lot of myths out there because there are people out don't believe in saying no to their dogs, and they think you can solve everything with just food, which you can't, which has been proven over and over and over again. A dog that is fixating and has a pattern of doing this. I'm not talking once, I'm not talking twice, I'm not talking 5 times, I'm talking 100 times. It's a pattern, it's a habit, and it needs to be stopped. Just like if I speed every single day, that needs to be stopped because it's going to lead to a car accident or something, or me getting hurt or me hurting somebody else. It has to be stopped. And who's going to stop it? Obviously, I may not get caught one day, the next day I'm going to get caught eventually. Okay? So you also, when you're working with a reactive dog, you need to be catching these moments. Is my dog loading? They call it the loading process. Is my dog's hackles up? Are they staring? That's a correction. Your dog is not going to go, ooh, maybe it's the dog that's giving me the correction. Maybe it's the road giving me the correction. Maybe it's this giving. No, your dog is going to connect the dots and go, well, what happens when I stare and I fixate? I get corrected. That must be a behavior that I should not be doing. What happens when I don't stare and I fixate? Oh, magically, there are no corrections that happen. So what is your dog going to lean into more? All the things that they're not getting corrected for. This is the reason why I speak so passionately about this, is because the question that was asked, and I think it was a very genuine question, is that there are people out there that don't understand this, and what's happening is they just regurgitate things to people that are actually struggling, that need the help, And then those people end up just not getting control of the behavior because
Yeah.
they're being told malarkey, excuse my language, bullshit, okay? And it's bullshit, all right? And this is the You Heard Me podcast for a reason, and I'm glad that this was the last question because now I'm all freaking fired up, and I could go for potentially much longer on this,
Oh, boy.
but that's the general gist of it. And I also feel like sometimes, you know, I could keep going on this. It's just, it's ridiculous. And we take in reactive dogs all the time, and it goes swimmingly. All right,
Swimmingly. Well.
swim. Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. Okay, it goes swimmingly. All right. Now, you can reward for all the other things, but I'm not getting rewarded for speeding. You're not getting rewarded for speeding. When's the last time you ran a stop sign and you were got rewarded for it? We have to move away from this stuff. And there are big voices that are regurgitating these things, and they should not be. They shouldn't be. And it's doing paying clients a disservice. I will never do a disservice to somebody that's going to give me their money. I will never do it. I will quit. I will shut down this company if it means that I have to say these silly things or whatever. And I'm so glad that we don't have corporate interest or investor interest that drive our blah, 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 whatever. And there are a lot of places, especially the ones that say these things, that do have interest to be saying those things. I don't. I say what I feel, and I say what works, and we do what works. And that's why we have the reputation we do, because I'm no BS, because I want to help you stop struggling. And it shouldn't take a year, and it shouldn't take 5, and it shouldn't take 10, and it's enough. All right. All this long, year-long, 2-year-long protocols that nobody ends up following needs to go away. It needs to stop. People need to stop getting emotionally manipulated with statements like this individual. I'm sure somebody said this to this owner at one point in time, and I'm sure that's why he or she is asking it. All right, it's enough. And I'm done. I'm fed up with it. I'm tired of hearing these types of things because it just drives people to just sit and not do anything because they're so scared of what might happen. And that's where I'm going to end on that one.
Okay. That was good, though.
Okay, so hopefully that was clear.
I think you hit home with that.
I hope so. I hope so.
I think you really...
And the pug is...
You got him.
He's going, yeah, good job. I love this shirt, by the way. It's my favorite shirt. Anyway.
Very cute.
How did I do? All right? Anybody in the...
audience over
in
here?
the audience, in the chat? They're probably like, oof, I need a glass of bourbon after that one. I don't know about you, but I need a glass of bourbon after that. Anyway,
Mother's probably drinking.
I love you guys. I love you guys. This is why I do this. I so appreciate your support. I hope that you are gleaning insight into the realities of dog training, and I thoroughly hope that by watching these podcasts, you're able to really shift your mindset on what needs to be done when it comes to getting control of a dog with a behavior issue. I don't mince words because I want to be very clear on how to go about doing things. And so I'm not, I as much as we have fun and Alyssa and I bicker and we joke, I also equally want to make sure that this is valuable for all of you. So thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you all. The You Heard Me podcast. This is episode 11, coming to you every Thursday, YouTube, 8 p.m. Thank you. Have a good night and see you next week.